All right, I see we have some people jumping in. We'll give it another minute or so as we do our introduction, but as always, you can count on us to start right on time. Before we jump into today's webinar, I am going to go over just how this webinar is going to work, just for those of you who have not been with us on a webinar before. Throughout this webinar, we cannot see you and we cannot hear you. However, we do encourage you to ask questions. Please feel free to utilize the chat or Q&A. And you can find those on your Zoom toolbar. It would be on the top, the side, or the bottom, depending on how you have your Zoom set up. So feel free to ask those questions, and I will reappear and ask David to answer those as he sees fit, as there's a break in the presentation. Without any further ado, I'm very excited to introduce our brand new bronze partner, 12 Points, and presenting with us today is David Clayman, and I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you, David.
Lena, thanks so much. And thank you everyone for your time today. I appreciate how busy you all are and time that you give. I want to make sure it is extremely valuable to you. So what we're going to talk about today is the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 that every business owner needs to know. So quickly, a little about myself. I'm a certified Vistage speaker and also an entrepreneur. So, oops. Excuse me 1 second on that. So I'm co-founder and CEO of 12 Points. We've overseen the growth of the company from a startup to managing $1.8 billion in assets on our wealth management side of the house, but we are primarily a business advisory firm as well. We have 7 companies under our brand, 27 people. And what do I know about growing businesses? Well, we've been named to the Inc. 5000 fastest growing companies in America list 4 times, the Boston Globe's 50 fastest growing companies in New England this past year, and the Boston Business Journal's Fast 50 for 2025. So I've made every mistake that I'm going to talk about not making today. So I'm trying to help you all get past some of those mistakes, avoid them if possible. And so I'm bringing my expertise and passion for entrepreneurship to assist other business owners and maximize the fruits of your labor. Biggest quote for me: possibilities exist, limitations are created. If you really think about what is possible in any time frame, it is truly amazing what we all can accomplish. And if we can really work hard and keep our minds open to that possibility, the limitations just fall by the wayside. What it doesn't say about me in my bio here is that I am an avid Mustang collector. I've been a car person my entire life. My dad's been a mechanic since he was 16 years old, so I grew up in the automotive industry. I wrenched on cars. I wouldn't know how to do anything with all the electronics these days, but I love to play, and I'm a collector of Mustangs from 1964 and a half all the way through 2017 is my newest. So I quite enjoy cars and have a strong passion for the industry overall. So what are we going to cover today? We're going to cover the 5 stages of value maturity of a business, the 5 Ds to prepare for, the 4 capitals in your business, the intangible capitals that make up about 70% of the value of your company, the 3 legs of your stool, your 3 personal gaps, your 2 paths that you need to follow, and your 1 goal. Let's start with stage 1 is identifying. First, we need to know what it is that we actually have. And the key decisions you're going to make throughout your 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, have I actually protected what I've built? Because it's great to continue building on the 2nd, 3rd, 4th story of the house, the 5th, 6th, 7th dealership under your ownership, but have you actually done all the things to protect what you've already built so that it can't be taken away? How do I maximize and realize that value for my stakeholders? That can be the community, my employees, my customers, and the people and causes I care about. And then lastly, when it comes time, what does my 3rd act look like? You know, I usually talk about, I am a certified exit planning advisor. No one likes to talk about exit planning. Why do we hate the term exit planning? Because often our identity personally is tied up in being the CEO or owner of the dealership or whatever our title is. We've done it all of our lives and it's become a part of who we are. There's a great line video that I usually show that from Top Gun Maverick. And Tom Cruise says, I'm a fighter pilot, a naval aviator. It's not what I do, it's who I am. Think about yourself. I think about myself. I identify myself as the CEO of 12 Points when someone asks me about myself. Do you always identify as the owner of the dealership? Well, what is that life like? after you sell the dealership, move on. So to me, good exit planning is just good business planning. Because if you have excellent governance, if you take care of those 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, your business is going to meet that number one goal you have, which is to create a business that is valuable, attractive, and transferable at any given time. And that could be because something really bad happens, disability, death, disagreement, divorce, any of those things. But it can also be something really good happens. Private equity keeps climbing into different industries. And do they suddenly want to roll up your company and pay you a multiple that you never even thought was possible? So you want to make sure that your company is valuable, attractive, and transferable at any given time. And as Kalina said, please feel free to ask questions anywhere throughout the presentation. Focusing on now, value is all about transferability. If the business is all you, if everything runs through you, it's not transferable. There's nothing for the new owner to potentially buy. So focusing on value produces all other positive outcomes. And the other thing I think about, everyone talks about exit planning is, oh, I'm going to do that right before I go. I'm going to do that. Why is it good business planning? Because if you're prepared, you're going to reap the benefits of those increased profits while you still own the company. Why would you not want to do that? It's like buying a car and then not driving it, so it'll be better for the next owner. Just doesn't make sense. You want to maximize the value while you still own it and not wait until the very last minute. Here are your 5 stages of value maturity. Again, we're going to talk first about identify, then we're going to go into protect, then build. Because until we've protected, it really doesn't make sense to continue to build. We're going to talk about harvesting it, your reward, and then ultimately managing that reward. So here in identify, 80–90% of your net worth is likely tied up in your business. But when's the last time you actually had it valued? Do you know how much that business is actually worth? I bet you know how much your investment portfolio is worth. And as a matter of fact, you've probably checked it online or via your statement in the last month with all the volatility that's been going on in the world. With your investment portfolio, do you do it yourself or do you get advice from a professional? If you're getting advice from a professional on your investment portfolio, should you not make sure that you have some kind of a consultant on your business, your largest asset? We think that's really important. Why do you care about these things? Well, I don't know about you all because I can't see you, but more than 50% of boomer business owners are 64 years or older. They own 63% of the businesses in the United States. 76% of those owners plan to transition over the next 10 years, 48% in just the next 5 years. That's a lot of people that are going to be looking to sell their businesses. You want to make sure that you're prepared and that you have a prime asset. 70% of businesses that are put on the market never sell. We believe that the main reason for that is everybody gets a quantitative valuation. So they go to their accounting firm or they go to an industry expert and all they look at is the financials, because those certified valuations need to be defendable in court, whether they're going to be used for estate transfer or whether they're going to be used in a divorce or whatever it is. The accountants, it's not their fault. They're required that they can only look at the quantitative factors because they have to be able to defend them. But the qualitative factors make up 70–80% of that business's value, and no one's looking at it. So why do those businesses not sell? You go to your accountant and you get a valuation, and they tell you your company's worth $20 million. And those are the numbers. But in fact, most of the customers are there because of you. You've built the reputation, or operations still run through you. There's no documented standard operating procedures, or structure isn't quite in place to move on. Now, someone comes along and does due diligence on your business and they say, it's probably worth about 14 to 15 million right now. Maybe we'll write you a note for some extra. You can earn out all those things. And you say, wait a minute, I've got a piece of paper right here that says I'm worth 20 million. I'm not selling. And that turns into a stalemate. So without that qualitative valuation that someone has done to look at the actual value of the business that someone will pay you, pre-diligence, if you will, before a deal, you're likely to end up at a stalemate where you've anchored to the valuation you've seen and it's quantitative only. And then lastly, 75% of business owners profoundly regret selling their business 12 months after the transaction. And it usually isn't about the money. It's about their loss of identity. It's about what do we do next? You can only play so much golf. And one of my favorite terms is your spouse doesn't want you around. They married you for better or worse, but not for lunch. If you've been going to work for 40 years, they don't suddenly want you in their business all the time. For a short term, sure, you could have a nice motorhome trip around the country, but then they'd like you to find some hobbies that take up your time. So figuring out what it is, what meaningful pursuit you're going to have after your exit is a really important piece. So here we are, the steps of stage one. What do we already have? Get that valuation, but get a quantitative and a qualitative valuation. Who can do that for you? Anyone who's a certified exit planning advisor. So if you look at the term SEPA, if you just Google that, obviously we are, but you can talk to anyone else that takes a look into those and they'd be there for you. Understand what risks are lurking. What potholes do I have in my life? Where have I not covered up? If I have partners, do I have a buy-sell agreement in place? Has it been updated as businesses have grown recently? We all know what the car industry has done since 2020. Have we updated those policies? Do we have a plan for if I'm a solo, if something happened to me tomorrow, who would run the dealership? Is it written down and identified? This person would take over the day-to-day operations. This person would be in charge of finances. If you're in business with other people and someone passes away or gets disabled, who's in charge of their shares? Do the descendants get voting rights? Do they just get non-voting rights? How do they get paid out? All of these things are risks. How entangled am I with my best customers? We like to call it entanglement, making sure that we've got a really good relationship with those repeat customers. You've defined that baseline measurement of value, and then understanding what drives value. If you look at a report that gives you qualitative metrics, you can see both what the company might be worth now and what its potential is, and they will lay out a roadmap for you to walk through and improve those key measures of value, those key performance indicators. You now understand what metrics need improving. And then lastly, is your business as valuable as you think it is? Maybe it's more so. Maybe you're still going to work and you have the opportunity to walk away earlier. These are all possibilities. And just understanding where you're at is a key next step. And timing does matter. I talked about sometimes it's a good time in the world. This is a real client we worked with. In 2021, their return on equity is 67%. But by 2023, it was negative 1%. In 2021, their debt was only 24%. Now, then 2023, it was 152%. Cash to debt was 315% in 2021, down to 42% in 2023. They actually lost money in 2023, so their income to revenue was zero after it was up 9% before that. Their receivables to income and their fixed assets to income all dropped from 23 to 21. This business went from being worth a few $1,000,000 to a few $100,000. So timing matters. This is a fair example of what a report could look like. So in this case, the business was actually very close to potential value. The current value, all in quantitatively and qualitatively, was $4.4 million. We only saw the upside with no increase in earnings or revenue as 4.6 million. So not a lot of work to be done there. Probably a good time for that business owner to say, you know what? If $4.4 million after taxes and everything equals my ultimate need on a personal standpoint, then there's not much to work on. Maybe it is time to walk away. So here are the key elements of the identify stage again. Annually scoring and understanding the value of your intangible capitals. So the non-financial pieces, that structure, those clients or customers you have, your employees, your reputation. Understanding that you certainly get a quarterly report at a minimum on your investment portfolio. Why would you not want to know that on your largest asset? Understanding your profit, value, and wealth gaps. So what are those? Your profit gap is your net margin versus the best in class in your industry. Where do you stand? Your value gap then is what multiple you would receive. And I'll go through a little example of this in a few minutes. But what multiple you would receive versus what multiple a buyer would pay for the best in class in the industry. And then the wealth gap is what is your business worth versus what you need it to be worth personally to live the life that you've planned out and to take care of the people and causes you've cared about. You want to compare your company to others in the industry. You want to know, how does my dealership rank versus other Ford dealers, Toyota dealers, families of dealerships, all those different things. What's my real number versus what's my tax number? So you can sell your business for $10 million, but if you haven't done great structuring, great planning, how much of that money are you actually going to receive? We did a webinar last week on the top 5 tax tips for business owners. And we were talking about the fact that if not planned for well, taxes can chew up 60% of the net value of your business. And then annually scoring your personal preparedness for transaction. Have you done your personal legal documents? Have you taken care of your estate plan? Have you taken care of your own mental state and what that's going to look like when you do actually walk away? Stage 2, protecting what you have. It's the first step in really building value. You've got risk mitigation in 3 categories: personal, financial, and business. What does that look like? Protecting on the personal side. Protecting against your death. Again, making sure that there are plans in place if something happens to you, along with insurance and other things. Disability. You're 7 times more likely to become disabled than to die. So what is the plan in case of your disability? Again, financially and operationally. Protecting your health. You want to live to reap the rewards of your life. So what are you doing to have a healthy balance between work and life? You have to protect against divorce. More than 50% of marriages, unfortunately, end in divorce. We need to make sure that we're personally protected and that our assets, our dealerships are protected. Accidents, obviously, again, not any insurance that we sell, but making sure your property casualty, your umbrella policy. If nothing else, when you walk away from this webinar, you should check your personal umbrella policies. It's the cheapest insurance you can get, and you should basically insure your entire net worth through an umbrella policy if possible. And then family tragedies, just making sure that we have done everything we possibly can to have the personal side of our house buttoned up. Protecting my financial side, okay? What are the market risks? And I don't mean stock market in that scenario. I mean tariffs. I mean regular economic downturns. We haven't had a really solid recession in this country since really 2008 was the last big one. They used to occur frequently. The Fed now thinks that they can make them disappear, but what is the market going to look like and how extended am I? Things like making sure I always have a credit line available to me in case of an economic downturn. Diversification. So what services are we offering within the dealership? Do we own other businesses personally? I know a lot of dealers have car dealerships and maybe they own some pizza franchises, or maybe they own a used car dealership on the side separate from their new car flagship store. All different kinds of ways to diversify yourself and protect. Personal loans and debts. How do I look on that side? How do I protect myself against personal lawsuits? What have I done to bulletproof my personal life? Loss of earning power. Again, something happens to you, if something happens to the dealership, are we prepared? And then again, this is both personal and financial. Long-term care is something one should think about. A lot of, unfortunately, people are suffering longer diseases in old age. And so making sure that you have a plan for whether you're going to age in home, whether you're going to have someone help care for you, what that looks like. Those are all important things to protect against financially. And then protecting the business. How can we ensure that we get those repeat customers? What do we do to build brand loyalty? What do we do to build dealership specific loyalty? How do we retain our key people? Do we have a star salesperson? Do we have a great service manager? What are we doing to ensure that we're retaining them? How do we protect ourselves against the economy as best we can? Distress, just a downturn in a local economy. Owner dependence. It can't be all about you, us. Again, I've been there. My company is still a little bit too dependent on me. Things that we are working to develop, and it's not a 3-month fix or a 6-month fix. It takes a couple of years to ensure that the business could actually operate without you present. And then loans and debt. What are we doing to shore up our balance sheet in the good times? Unlike the US government who took on debt throughout an economic boom, we want to make sure that our personal balance sheets are paid down as best we can during economic booms so that we're prepared for any economic busts. Your key elements of the protect stage. Take a short-term point of view and mitigate those risks. Understand what they are. Define them as personal, business, or financial. Then develop a 90-day action plan to take care of the business and the personal. Create contingency plans around those 5 Ds: divorce, death, disability, partner dispute, or dissolution. What do we need to do to protect against those 5 Ds? Formalize your advisory team. Make sure that your advisory team also is up to snuff. It is very possible that the team that you had when you founded your business is not the same team you need now. And let's not even talk about a transaction. That's just day to day. Are they prepared to optimize your business life? So are they familiar with current tax credits? Are they up to speed on advantages? I had a funny conversation with a business owner last week, and he said, I told my accountant last week, the way you get fired is if I get audited and I don't have to pay anything, because it means you weren't trying hard enough. It's kind of funny. Obviously, we don't want to have any audits, but at the same time, we want to ensure that we're taking advantage of everything that is rightfully ours but still being careful and legal. I spoke with another business owner last week, and we were talking about transferring some of the assets to the next generation and how to do it before the sale of the business. And I suggested a spousal lifetime access trust. I'm not going to get into too much detail here, but in short, when I said the term SLAT, his attorney didn't know what that was. It's a pretty basic estate planning term. We decided it was time to go find him a new attorney. And then lastly, how much am I willing to risk in order to grow? This is a question that business owners don't ask themselves often enough, because every single time, every single day, you are putting what you've built at risk in some way. So it is our recommendation that every 180 days or so, you're thinking about, what am I risking today? And is it worth it to grow? Are we still in that position? And just assessing where you're at on a regular basis in that business. Stage 3, to grow. So now we're ready to grow. There's really 2 ways to build value. You can either increase your cash flow, or you can increase your multiple in your business. EBITDA, or earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, and amortization, increases due to operational and financial enhancement initiatives. So things like improving your expense controls and your management, identifying opportunities for improved efficiencies, determining the more profitable subset of customers' products to focus on. So whether that's what line we want to offer, what brand we want to be associated with, or whether that's having a separate tire store or whatever that might be, but determining where our most profitable subset of customers, maybe it's a customer loyalty program for businesses that buy 10, 15 trucks a year. All those things are going to increase EBITDA. And lastly, improving your working capital needs. So if you can diminish the amount of working capital you need, that's going to increase your earnings, and that ultimately puts more money in your pocket in the short term. That's one way to build value. The second way to build value, your multiple, what your business is worth, increases by doing these de-risking and operational initiatives that I'm talking about. Looking at appropriate growth strategies, whether that's organic, growing on your own, or inorganic through acquisition. Improving your budgeting and forecasting processes. The quickest way to harm value in your business is to talk to someone about a potential buyer or financer, and your financials don't look good. They're not prepared. They're not ready. It's going to take me a couple of months to put them together. These are all things we've seen. And then lastly, more guided decisions for making capital investments. So how are you deciding, yes, this major investment, this major initiative is worth it? Whom are you leaning on as your advisory team? That's going to increase the multiple in the business if we're looking at those long-term strategic tools. And here, so traditional accounting systems, as I mentioned, they're quantitative. They're set up to provide regular feedback on your tangible assets. Those make up, those might be 1 to 2x for a multiple, 1 to 2 times your revenue or your sales, whomever you're looking at this. Here, excuse me, I meant to say net income. Excuse me, 1 to 2 times your net income. Here, your intangibles might be 3x or more. And that's your 4 C's, your 4 capitals: your human, your customer, your structural, and your social. And those are the direct drivers of your business attractiveness. How well those 4 C's are taken care of is going to make your business more and more attractive. So those key elements of the growth stage. View the business value from a long-term strategy. Identify those strategic actions to increase significant value. How can we strategically increase cash flow? Is there a way to impact the bottom line for the long term? What strategic actions must be taken to increase those intangible capitals? What actions need to be taken to drive efficiency, drive growth, and drive culture? Culture is such a big piece of what we do, because the longer we can keep employees, the longer we can keep operational continuity, the better the business is going to run. That's going to increase both bottom line in the short term and top line and valuation multiple in the long run. And then we really strongly recommend every 90 days you're running on a sprint. You've got 4 to 5 initiatives that are going to grow the value of the business, and that you're measuring how are we improving on these 4 to 5 every 90 days. Now to harvesting. So, sorry about that. So in case you are thinking about a transaction, there's really 6 steps to a transaction. And that transaction likely takes about 6 to 9 months. And what are you doing? You're preparing the business for sale. You have to find a buyer. You then have to negotiate terms. Then there's that final due diligence. So when someone agrees to buy you, in my previous example, they might have said, yeah, 20 million seems fair. But then they're going to start digging into the company. And when they're doing that due diligence, that's when the real numbers are going to come out. And that's when you're going to find out, if you haven't done your pre-diligence, then maybe that number is going to drop significantly. Then there'll be transactional documents and the transition to the new owner. So what key elements are there? Considering all of your exit options, whether that's a sale to a financial buyer, whether that's a sale to another dealership, whether that's an internal transfer, some kind of employee ESOP, an employee stock ownership plan where the employees take over. Maybe it's a family transfer. But think about what they all look like, because each one of them may have different tax implications. For example, your number one biggest number is probably going to come from private equity. They just are paying the highest multiples these days. But Maybe you've built a legacy and it's really important to you that your employees take over. Well, then an ESOP could make sense, the employee stock ownership plan. That's going to be a lesser number because by law, as a retirement plan, those are required to pay only fair market value. They can't pay above whatever a business is valued at. Whereas private equity can get into a bidding war. However, the net of that could be different because, for example, if you're a C corporation, when you sell to an ESOP, that's 100% tax-free as long as it stays in U.S. assets. So U.S. stocks and bonds afterwards, which is what most people do, or real estate. So the net on those would be very different, even though the gross might be significantly higher for a private equity. Consider partial options. Right now, I can tell you there are private equity funds that want to take minority stakes in dealerships and help you to buy that next dealership or grow or just diversify your assets. So it doesn't have to be an all or nothing. So it may be interesting to explore those minority interests these days. Considering what those deal terms and deal structures are, we hate earnouts. We hate you have to stay for 2 years. We're going to give you 50% of your money down, 60% of your money down, and the next 40% is based on how the dealership runs. No. Give me less money now, today, upfront, and I don't have to deal with an earnout because I don't know how you're going to run that business. I'm not comfortable being subject to your management. So understanding all your different options and what those could look like. And then lastly, prepare that detailed strategy to exit. It's going to take that 6 to 9 months. You want to make sure you have somebody good on your team. I've heard a lot of people that don't want to use an investment banker or a business broker because they take a fee. Well, you want to be really confident when you sell what is likely your biggest asset. And confidence comes from 2 things. It comes from experience and knowledge. And if you are selling a special to a financial buyer, a private equity or someone else, I can promise you they've done this 100 times, so they have more experience and they have more knowledge. So make sure you're arming yourself with a team that can compete with that. And then managing. So this is a little bit more on the wealth management side. You want to make sure you have a good financial plan in place. Spoke to a set of owners last week. 2 of the owners were getting ready to retire. There were 5 total owners. And they couldn't figure out how to buy those 2 out. So they were like, oh, we'll just sell. And I said, well, what do you need to sell for? What's the number? And none of them had any idea because they hadn't built a plan. So making sure that your business, which has been your lifeblood, makes sense for you to sell and that it's going to give you what you need in life. So these are all the various components of financial planning and investment management that all come into play. But your key elements, have your financial advisor, have a conversation with them, make sure you know what you need to live the life that you want to live for yourself, your family, and the people and causes you care about. Make sure your personal plans and vision are lived out. What is that going to look like after you're done? Are you actively managing the business? And then how are you effectively managing your life after the business? These are all key pieces of that manage. I talked a little bit about the 5 Ds. Those 5 unexpected exit reasons: death, obviously, disability, divorce, distress, and disagreement. These are all obviously negative ways to leave the business, but they're all real, and we need to have built in protections for ourselves today, because any one of these things can happen to us any day. Talked about those 4 capitals, the intangible capital. So we talked about your 5, now we're on to your 4. Your human capital, your structural capital, your customer capital, and your social capital. They make up 80% of the business's total value. So here are some of your human capital considerations. These are your people. My ability to motivate them. How dependent is the business on the owner? How do I measure performance for those people? Am I doing enough training? Do I have enough competency on the team? Do I have a great CFO, controller, whatever business, whatever title you give to that role? Are our people results oriented? Are they learning and growing? Do they have the ability to prioritize and the ability to make good decisions? All these things are things you need to think about. Team chemistry, all really important. Are they customer focused? That's all important components of your human capital. 62% of business owners in a survey last year indicated that finding and retaining top talent is the biggest challenge they face. Now, if we're going into maybe an economic soft spot here, maybe that's going to ease up a little bit, but we have to think about, how do we recruit employees? How do we motivate them? How do we retain them? And then how do we evolve with them? Employees want to grow. They need to see a path forward. Are we able to provide that for them? What does that career path look like? And how are we motivating and retaining them? I spoke with a dealership a few weeks ago. One of the best 401k matches I've ever seen. 100% of your 100% match up to 10% of compensation. Unbelievable. They have a 30% participation rate because no one is educating the employees about how great a benefit that really is. And also, the plan is not designed well because the owners actually aren't able to contribute their own maximums, because the way they design the match, it's not providing them safe harbor, which would negate any testing. And the employees aren't participating either. So they're putting money in there that doesn't need to be put in, and they're not taking care of themselves either. So really important how your benefit programs are structured. Do we have an attractive place to work? What is the environment? What's the culture? What's the representation? What's the reputation of that out there? Am I on Glassdoor? Am I looking at what people are saying about my company? Am I able to clearly articulate my business's values? So, ours are easy. We're 12 points, 12 points of the Scout Law. I'm an Eagle Scout. We know those 12. They're written on the wall all over the place. And what are the key characteristics for my employees that I'm looking for? What am I looking for? Am I using a recruiter? Am I telling them exactly who I'm looking for and what that looks like? How best am I doing that? Excuse me. I mentioned employees want more than a job. They want a calling these days. That's not easy. We're trying to run a business now. We have to run, some higher being, but it really is important to employees. Am I a passionate and inspirational leader? If it's not me that's there every day, is there someone else there that's really showing employees the way, that's breeding that great culture? And then what are those incentive programs that we have built in? What's our rate of turnover for high performers? That's a huge red flag in your business for yourself while you're trying to maximize it. And if there's a future transaction to happen, am I providing that path to growth? And how am I providing those retention incentives, whether they're retirement plans, whether the percentage of health benefits I'm paying for, whether they're sales incentives, any of those things. Am I promoting my talent? Is my leadership team evolving? If not, why not? Those are really important things to examine to ensure that the business is running as well as possible. Now we move on to your social capital. What am I thinking about? The rhythm of my team. How are they operating together? Scorecards, feedback, and review. What's the style of the office? What's our communication internally and externally? What incentive programs are we offering outside of the business? And what competitive salary are we offering? How is that playing into our reputation? Our company culture is the heartbeat of our organization, and ultimately, it's your brand. Your brand stands for something. And a lot of people build a business, but if you can build a brand, that's really powerful. Customer considerations. Are our customers or clients engaged or entangled? I like that entangled, like we're important to them. Think about a customer that maybe you maintain their fleet. Are you proactively reaching out and making those calls to say, geez, your trucks typically need maintenance every 3 months. I can see that coming up. Can we get you on the schedule? Make yourself so important to that customer, that they don't think they could do it without you. That's really important. Do you have service contracts or agreements in place? What do those look like? Do you have loyalty programs for your customers? Dealerships typically don't have customer concentration problems, but if you have a really big company that's buying a lot from you or getting a lot of service, how can you develop a second customer to replace them just in case? And then what's your reputation out there in the world? That's huge. Obviously, we know if we don't get all 5s on our surveys, when our clients fill them out, customers fill them out, the parent brand isn't very happy with us, and we don't get the full acknowledgement for that. And again, I know a lot of dealership is transactional, but where can we build deep, long-term contractual relationships? How can we consistently and reliably, recurringly deliver great service? What are 3 things a customer would say your business does well? What would your customers say you should stop doing? Those are great questions to ask in surveys. What isn't important to them? Because we get all kinds of ideas. Oh, we've got fresh coffee. Maybe they don't care. What can we do? What are we doing that we don't need to be doing? Our structural capital. This is your processes and your procedures. Are our certificates and licenses all up to date? Are there other ones that we should be considering getting? How up to date is our technology? What investments are we making there? Whether that's from actual service techs, those have to be up to date, but from all data that you need to Salesforce as a customer relationship management tool. What are we using and how integrated is all that technology? How is it helping us be more efficient? How is AI going to play into our business? I will tell you all, I spent 8 hours at an AI seminar on Thursday, and the amount of use cases that exist just to plan your business are amazing, but scary at the same time. Understanding how that's going to impact our business and where it's going to help or hurt is going to be really important. Are our processes and procedures documented? Do we have scalable models? Are we ready to grow? Whether that's into another dealership, whether that's within our own service department or parts department. And is our process repeatable and understandable? Could someone walk in tomorrow as a new employee and get a playbook and be ready to be a leader in 3-4 months? That's how repeatable and understandable those processes should be. Structured capital is everything that makes your company work efficiently. It's process documentation, training, tech, tools, equipment, even your real estate. It's no dependence on any one person. I talked about that rock star salesperson or that great service manager. We've got to always have a team behind them, because anything can happen on any given day, positive or negative, that leads to that one person not being on our team anymore. And the knowledge, it must be documented and transferable. We can't have it all in one person's head. Your 3 gaps, your profit gap, your value gap, and your wealth gap. Now, as we move into the 3s of the 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, let's talk about your profit gap is the difference between your company's EBITDA and that of the best in class in your industry. So if you're running 5% margins and best in class is 10%, you're missing out on 5% of your profits. So let's say you're doing $2 million. Man, that's too small. Let's say we're doing $20 million. It's $1 million of net profit that we're missing out on. That's an important component, obviously, while we still own the business. Now let's talk about what it does to your value. The value is the difference between the multiple for your company and that of best in class. So let's say we did want to sell our business and we were doing $20 million and we had 5% margins. So we're making $1 million. Someone might be willing to pay 2.5 times for that business. So we're going to get $2.5 million. Now, if we take our margins from that 5% to best in class 10%, our multiple might go from 2.5 to 5. Well, now our profits weren't just $1 million, they were $2 million. And our multiple is no longer 2.5, but it's 5. So now we're getting 10 million. So we just took the value of our business from 2.5 million to 10 million. And all we did was make sure we're best in class. Do you know if you're best in class? What are you doing to compare yourself? And lastly, your wealth gap. That's the difference between the amount of money you need to care for your family, the people and causes you care about, and the total value of the business plus all your accumulated outside assets. Very simple. Do I have enough to do everything I want to do in life? Now, the other 3, because we've got 2 3s, you've got a 3-legged stool. You've got your personal, your business, and your financial. You can see them there. Obviously, if one of the legs isn't stabilized, you're going to tip over. So how do we make sure that we're planning for all 3 legs of the stool? Which leg of the stool is most important? To me, they're all important because if you're uneven, again, you're going to fall over. So what are the business considerations I need to be thinking about? The factors that maximize the value of my business today and in the future. Systems and documentation, the financial health of the business. What factors are we thinking about for growth? How predictable is my business income? How good is my management and my overall personnel? And then what have I done in the category of risk management to protect it all? It's so important. I'll give you one more example on protection, and this is nothing that we sell. This is just something we try to make sure that clients know about. Cyber protection. Cybersecurity is so important these days, and cyber insurance with it. We have a client who is in the food industry, and 3 years ago, right before Christmas, he got hacked. Got in touch with his entire system was shut down. Got in touch with the FBI, and they said, yes, we know this criminal. He's asking for $4 million. He is an honorable criminal, if there is such a thing. If you pay him, he will return all of your data and will go away. And sure enough, the client paid the $4 million and everything was returned and it has been smooth sailing ever since. Now he has cyber insurance, obviously, but $4 million had to leave before he did that. Personal considerations, my family and friends, my self-identity, my health, religion and beliefs, maybe, my self-worth, charitable or community, hobbies and fun, all things that, again, we should be laying out to ensure that we have good balanced stool. And as we talk about the personal, advanced estate and tax planning, control over your personal and affairs, your lifestyle, how am I going to convert my paper profits to actual money in my pocket? What does that look like? How have I protected myself from lawsuits and judgment? If it's a family business, how am I managing the value of that family? How am I taking care of people who are in the business, out of the business? How do I pass that value and responsibility on to family? You know, there's still the possibility at the end of this year that the federal exemption for gifting is going to be reduced unless there's an act of Congress. Now, obviously, we think there will be in the current law, but at the moment, your exemption for gifting is scheduled to go from 13 million down to 6.5 million. So planning for that is important. And then how do I protect myself from administrative expense and delay? Key financial considerations. What are my income requirements now and in the future? How much stuff am I running through the business that I don't think about those expenses every day? What's my retirement security? Have I protected myself personally from risk, contingencies, insurance? Again, maybe it's long-term healthcare. And then my personal wealth, all things that need to be planned out long in advance. Are my personal, financial, and business plans alive? Can I achieve my personal objectives without the income from the business? That's a key moment to say, whew, I have freedom. This is good. I may want to keep working for the next 15 years, but at least I know where I'm at and I know I'm free. What are my needs? What are my wants? What more could I do? What is the possibility that I didn't even think about because I've been so head down in the business? I haven't taken it up to think about what more could I do with life. Your two concurrent paths, value acceleration and the ultimate sale of your business. I know there's been a lot of talk about exiting the business, but guess what? You are going to leave your business one way or the other, 10 toes up or 10 toes down. You will leave your business someday. So having it valuable, attractive, and transferable at any given time is super important because it could be for a good reason or it could be for a bad reason, but you've got to be prepared. So these two concurrent paths. So this is on your personal side. We do what we call third act planning. It's thinking about what life looks like. And here, you know, go through your retirement phase and sometimes it's honeymoon, sometimes it's gloom and doom. But when you come out of that, you've got to re-engage and think about, am I going to do paid work, consulting maybe within the industry? Am I going to do some volunteer work? Am I going to pursue other interests, cycling, golf, whatever that might be? Or is it just going to be pure leisure before I go to my downshift? We call them the go-go years. Slow go, the go-go, the slow go, and then the no-go. We take through an exercise, the Rich Life Mindset, and it really thinks about all these different aspects that make up your entire purpose as a person. There are three cornerstones. It's living well, working hard, enjoying a good lifestyle and a good life. giving back if that's important to you, whatever that looks like, and then leaving a legacy, whether that's money, whether that's lessons for your family, whatever that might be. So there is a scorecard for it. We take people through overall looking and coming up with a total score for where you're at, and then rating the priority and what would it take to make your life a 10 in any of these given categories, professionally, your primary relationship, family and friends, giving back, all those things. I've talked a lot about this. Your one goal, creating a company of significance that's valuable, attractive, and transferable. And the best way to grow value in your business, as hard as it is for any of us to believe as the founders, maybe, is for it to run independently from the owner. It really is what makes it attractive to other people, transferable to other people, and extremely valuable. You've all built great businesses. Ensure that they are companies of significance. So your takeaways, know your 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. There's a lot of information in here. If this was interesting to you and if you'd like it, reach out to Colleen and let her know. And I actually do separate sessions on each of the 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1 that we could run for NHADA members. We're very happy to have these conversations. Proper planning prevents poor results. There are going to be unforeseen circumstances at some point in your life. They may be good, they may be bad. But if you plan for them properly, it prevents poor results. From day one of your business, now, I don't think any of you are on your day one of your business if you're sitting here listening to me, but your goal, whether it's this business or another business you run, from day one, you should be building it to sell it someday, because that's how you reap the benefits ultimately, whether that's selling it to your own family or selling it externally. But that should be your goal from day one. Ask yourself daily, am I building an enterprise that's ready to sell? Is everything I am doing building value in this business? And look, it's not going to be everything, let's be honest. But if we can get to the point where 70, 75% are all things that build value in that business, that makes you a great owner. That makes you puts you in a position to be optimizing for yourself, your family, and the people and cause you care about. And lastly, find your meaning and prepare for your third act. It comes hard. I've seen people who just sit in front of a television all day and waste away. My own father is a great story. Before I was in this business, my father decided at age 52 to sell his gas station auto repair shop. He sold it. He didn't get out of bed for 3 days. And on the 4th day, he finally got out of bed and went and found a job, and now he's still turning wrenches. He doesn't need to. He just doesn't know what else to do. He's an auto mechanic. Not what he does. It's who he is. He's been doing it since he's 16, still doing it at 75. So don't do that. Find meaning in other places and prepare for that third act. I like to be in the planning business, not the repair business. So, the Maytag repairman looks bored. That's because someone was planning. Then, of course, if you know who that is, the greatest investor of all time, potentially Warren Buffett. He said, someone's sitting in the shade today because someone planted a tree a long time ago. A lot of people come to us and other people to help them sell their businesses in the last 6 months, in the last year. It can be done, but it's really hard. And again, why not optimize those profits for yourself while you still own the business? Why do all the good stuff to make it great right before you get out? Why not increase all those things while you still own it? Great culture, great profits. Sounds like a pretty good place to be. Lena hasn't stopped me for any questions, so I don't know if there have been any. I wasn't looking at the chat. No,
Nope, I haven't seen any questions come in, but definitely if there are any out there, feel free to send those in through the chat or Q&A. I certainly got a lot out of this, and that was a wealth of information, so I can understand if everyone on here is kind of just processing. So please feel free that later today, later this week, later down the road, if you have any questions, we are always here and always happy to connect you with David. David, feel free to share your contact information, and I will also send it out via email afterwards to the attendees just so you have it. Feel free to reach out directly to him. And their partner profile page is right on our site, so always feel free to utilize that. And there's an inquiry form built right in that you can also utilize to send in any questions. But really, thank you so much, David, for being here with us this morning. All of this information. Not seeing any questions come in,
Mhm.
so happy to let everybody go on with the rest of their day.
Well, thank you all very much for your time. It is much appreciated, and I hope it was valuable and time well spent.
Wonderful. Thank you so much again,
Thank you, Lena.
David, and thank
Thank you
you for
all.
all our viewers. Have a
Take
great
care.
day.
You too. Bye-bye.